Hello and welcome to another Smash Accept YouTube exclusive rookie show where Snoog and I are going to break down an absolutely elite yet deep 2025 running class, a class that is going to bring you fantasy championships. We're excited to do this. If you guys don't follow us on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that follow button. The first guy we're going to talk about in our tier is Ashton Jeanty. He is in that S tier for us. He is in that Smash absolutely elite area. 5'9", 215, a 21-year-old early declare, true freshman breakout, round one prospect, likely going to go in the top 10. Someone that is just a perfect three-down workhorse. Someone that in the Dynasty community, Snoog and I already have as a top 3 Dynasty running back. He is going to break in day one with the right landing spot. This is someone that's going to win you championship after championship, and I'm super excited to add him to the Dynasty running back landscape.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at his production this season, 43 receptions was his best as a sophomore. So he has that elite receiving upside. I know people are doubting that because of his junior season, but 569 receiving yards. He averaged 3.19 yards per route run in his sophomore season. Like, that is absolutely elite. That is generational type receiving prospect, despite his junior season not saying that. But if you just look at the underlying metrics, I mean, 90 plus PFF grade in all 3 seasons. He broke the PFF grade in the PFF era with like 97.5, which is the highest ever graded out by them. 2,600 plus rushing yards this year, 30 plus touchdowns, just shy of breaking the all-time college football single season record. I mean, 5.48 yards after contact per attempt. You mentioned he had the most yards after contact in the entire college football season this year, more than the second highest rusher. So he had the first most rushing yards and the second most rushing yards after contact. So that just shows how elite he was. And if we just dive into some player comps we have for him, I see a CMC type player. Like, this is a guy from a smaller school. I mean, Stanford was a smaller Big 12 or Pac-12 school. I think they're Pac-12. Back when CMC was coming out, had like 2,000 yards rushing, elite receiver. Jeanty stacks up very similar analytically if you just look at the underlying metrics coming out of school. So both 5'9", 5'10", both 210. I think it's a great comp. Both elite receivers, both great runners. They're going to be workhorse guys, top 10 talents. I'm excited for Jeanty. He's our RB3 overall already before he's even drafted to the Dallas Cowboys or the Bears in the top 12. That's going to happen. Mark it, pin it, remember it here. And I'm excited because he was one of my favorite players. He was my favorite player last year. So he's excited to see him kind of take this huge step into the right direction to be generational.
Yeah, and that's our S tier. He's in there by himself. We have 4 other running backs that are in this A tier. This A tier we have is, if everything lines up properly, these guys have top 12 Dynasty running back upside. There's one guy in particular here, though, that Snoog and I both believe that could, if he goes to the Chargers, if he goes to the Cowboys, if he goes to that right landing spot, will be in that smash tier, that S tier. A guy that you and I both comp to Melvin Gordon, a bigger Aaron Jones. Kaleb Johnson has all the talent to be in that S tier for us.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy I loved on tape, right? He's a 6 foot, 220 plus pound back, 21 years old, early declare. He had that true freshman breakout, 780 plus yards in the Big Ten as a true freshman at like 19 years old. He's like a fringe round 1, probably early day 2 type talent, that early round 2 guy. But I mean, 22 receptions, capable receiver. That was his best. He does more than just catch a swing route, which I was excited about. And he looks very natural catching the football. 1,500 plus yards rushing, over 1,000 plus yards after contact this season. 4.42 yards after contact per attempt. These are elite numbers. 66 missed tackles forced, 23 total touchdowns. Checking every box. I mean, if you look at his rushing yards over expected, he was elite in that category as well as just looking into kind of the metrics, even as far as yards per team play, 2.47, just absolute monster. In the best conference in college football this year was the Big Ten. He was Iowa's offense. This is one thing I love to highlight about Iowa, about Ashton Jeanty on Boise, about Quinshon Judkins on Ole Miss. They were the offenses. That's something that I love to look at when I'm evaluating prospects, especially at the running back position. Are you the whole team's offense? Are the boxes stacked against you? Is everything against you? Are you on a good team? Are you on a mid team? Are you on a bad team? These 3 guys, jumping into Quinshon Judkins with the next guy here. But I mean, these 3 guys are just absolute workhorse running backs, and they were all at one point in time their entire offense. So, Dad, tell us about Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, it's funny because the next 2 guys that we have in this tier are on the same team. You were just talking about they've had that spot where they've been the bell cow Quinshon Judkins, when he went from Ole Miss to Ohio State, kind of gave that up. You and I both think that this is a positive thing. They went to an offense where neither of them are going to have the same wear and tear as an Omarion Hampton or some of these other guys. You look at Judkins first, 6 foot, 215, 21 years old, early declare, someone that has early day 2 talent, true freshman breakout, just like we were talking about before. Someone that he had his best season of 1,567 rushing yards, 17 total touchdowns. This is someone that has receiving skills, true 3-down back. You and I both compare to in the area of Josh Jacobs to Joe Mixon, where then you look at Treyveon Henderson, same offense, but would have clearly been the RB1 overall in 2024's class. Now is more in that 4-5 range in this class. Someone that comps to a Kenneth Walker, Tajay Spears type, a little bit smaller, 5'10", 208, 22 years old, so a little bit older, senior declare, early day 2 talent, just like Judkins. But for me, I think the youth, the lesser wear and tear, and a little bit more, a little bit more prototypical size. I have Judkins slightly over Henderson, but I think both of these guys are going to run in that 4-3, 4-4 range. They're going to be guys that are true bell cow running backs, and that's just what we're looking for at this point in the game.
Yeah, and those two guys, the two Ohio State guys, are 2 of 3 running backs in this class with 1,000+ rushing yards as a rookie, and they did that in the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, just from watching his tape, he's probably my favorite value in this class at running back, just from seeing other consensus sites and draft sites where they're ranking him. I think he could easily be RB2 in this class. I think he can easily be in the smash tier with the right draft capital. But in terms of like his versatility and kind of his complete running style, I think he's the most complete in terms of like inside running between the tackles and outside, just because of how Ole Miss used him as that downhill tenacious runner, and then at Ohio State on that perimeter a little bit more in that RPO style, that toss outside option. But Treyveon Henderson too. I mean, if you just look at him, 1,200 rushing yards as a true freshman, 117 elusiveness rating, which is very elite. He's got that wiggle. That's why we had that Kenneth Walker, Tajay Spears comp for him. I mean, he's another one, true freshman breakout. I love seeing that, like true freshman breakouts on these big Power 5 schools. But I mean, Judkins, 1,500+ yards as a true freshman, 78 missed forced tackles. This is his best in a season, 3,500+ career rushing yards, 17 total touchdowns as a true freshman. Followed that up with a very good sophomore season at Ole Miss as well. He was their entire team for a while. So it's really good to see him go to an Ohio State, split a backfield with another very talented running back, and see them both used in different ways. Like I saw Treyveon Henderson get better as a pure runner between the tackles, taking more, lowering his shoulder, using his contact power and his size, and seeing Judkins get more on the perimeter more. So I think it helped their draft stock well, showing how diverse and dynamic they are as runners. But Henderson's more that like dynamic perimeter outside runner. Judkins is more that Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, I'm going to run through your face type of runner. So let's jump into that RB5 we got.
Yeah, there's one more guy in this tier for me, and that's Omarion Hampton. And you look at him, and he's not quite the same as the other guys, because we're talking about a sophomore breakout, not a freshman breakout. He's still 21 years old, 6 foot 220, so he checks those boxes. Another early declare. I think he also goes in that day 2 area. But you look at what he has. I mean, this was true workhorse. I think at the next level, we're looking maybe first and second down early work with some progression later on. I know you comped him to James Conner, but you look at what he did this year. 1,660 rushing yards. That's number 3, I should say now. 90+ PFF grades, 67 forced missed tackles. Someone that had 4.35 yards after contact per attempt. Another guy that I think right landing spot. This is someone that clearly is above the RB1 from last year, has top 12 upside. And I think that's the end of our A tier. We move into B tier, and we have some guys here where, if you tell me Nick Singleton comes out, I might move him up into A. It's just, I haven't come to the point in the realization of just saying, yeah, Nick Singleton's going to be in this draft class. But if he is Snoog, someone that you comp to Chuba Hubbard, Travis Etienne Light, someone that checks all the boxes, another early declare, day 2 talent, true freshman breakout. Nick Singleton could be in this A tier. Right now we have him in the B, but he's right on that fringe.
Yeah, he joins Treyveon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins for the only running backs in this class that have 1,000 rushing yards as a true freshman. I mean, 21 years old still. I think he's a day 2 talent all day, 1,000+ rushing yards, best season, 13 total touchdowns. His This is where I love Nick Singleton. Like his PFF pass blocking grade was great. His yards after contact per attempt were great. 4.58 was his best season. His receptions, 39 receptions. He was used in another situation like Ohio State as that Treyveon Henderson to the Quinshon Allen's Quinshon Judkins, right? Like he was used. Quinshon Allen was like that bully ball kind of between the tackles runner, and Nick Singleton was like that change of pace, explosive guy, get on the perimeter, catch the ball in the backfield. He's a dynamic pass catcher. He's arguably one of the best in the class as a pass catcher, right behind Jeanty. But I think Chuba Hubbard, Travis Etienne, like if there's a crease, you're not catching him. He's gone. Like he brings that dynamic ability to an offense, and I think a lot of NFL offenses are going to love that today. So yes, if Nick Singleton declares, he's going to be in that fringe A tier for me, or maybe in like a tier behind Kaleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, and Treyveon Henderson, right there with Omarion Hampton. But any landing spot, if they go round 2, like any of these guys could be above one another. Like the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Bears, one of these teams takes a guy. But Singleton, explosive man. Like I said, that true freshman season was special. This year was special, splitting carries with Quinshon Allen. But I'm excited for these 6 guys that we just talked about. Let's jump into this next tier.
Yo, the RB7 here has blown up over the last month. I mean, you know, with a sophomore breakout, someone's 5'11", 215. You look at what Cam Skattebo has done, and right now, 1,700 rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, 45 receptions, another 600-plus receiving yards, and 4 more touchdowns. You know, and he led all of college football with 1.6 yards per route run as a running back. This is a absolute dog. 4.11 yards after contact, you know, per attempt. That is unbelievable. 92 missed tackles. Aside from Jeanty, who led all of college football with 150, 92 forced missed tackles from a guy that, you know, we were not sure of because he's a senior declare. So I think that's going to, if he can run at the combine, right now, you and I think he's probably that high 4.5s. If he runs mid 4.5, low 4.5, this is someone that could get day 2 capital. And I think, you know, someone that we look at that could be, you know, a lot of people are going to look at him first and just say Peyton Hillis, but this is someone that has some upside for even more, someone that could really be an elite producer at the next level. You and I both love Cam Skattebo. You know who else we love? Dylan Sampson. So that these are 2 polar opposite type players. Dylan Sampson, 5'11", 201, early declare, sophomore breakout, someone that has just elite level speed, someone that you're just going to, you know, you have comped to Tony Pollard. These 2 guys are polar opposite, but man, I love them at RB7 and RB8. And you could argue that they belong up there with the RB1, 2 of last year. They're in that area.
Yeah, if you just look at the underlying metrics for these 2 guys, I mean, if you just look, they both hit 70+ missed tackles forced in a single season. Both hit 4+ yards after contact per attempt in a single season, and they both had a 90+ PFF rush grade. I mean, they both also hit 20+ total touchdowns in a single season. They're polar opposites. You got Tony Pollard, Jerome Ford type, and Dylan Sampson, that explosive, dynamic perimeter runner that can just hit home runs, smaller back, good receiver. Then you got Cam Skattebo, that David Montgomery light, that LeGarrette Blount, that Peyton Hillis, run through your face, wreak havoc on the football field, absolute dog, heart full of just, I want to win football, I want to play, I want to run through people's faces. That's the type of player he is. Both sophomore breakouts. I mean, these guys both would have been top 5 running backs last year in the 2024 draft class. I have fringe day 2 grades on both of them. I think they're more like round 3, maybe early round 4 guys. I think it's all going to depend on like how the NFL views them, and do they view them as much better as the guys after them. And that's like kind of how 2023 went, right? Like there was a lot of round 3 guys, and only Charbonnet went in round 2. So that's kind of like, it all depends on how the NFL views them, and does that team that's going to need a running back need a Cam Skattebo, right? Do they have Derrick Henry and want a Dylan Sampson? Do they have a Tony Pollard and want a Cam Skattebo? Like that's what it's going to come down to. But I think both these guys are going to slot in nice into the NFL to have some type of role.
Yeah, we got one more guy in that B tier. These are the starters, the guys that we think, someone that in 2023 winning the Doak Walker Award. A lot of people are forgetting about him because of those stacked boxes. But what he was able to do in 2023 was phenomenal. 39 receptions, 1,732 rushing yards, 22 total touchdowns, and 68 missed forced tackles. Ollie Gordon is someone that, you know, I know you have comp to Jordan Howard, but a lot of people have really started to sour on over this past year. But the production was there. as a early, true sophomore breakout. Now that he's a little bit older, people are like, what have you done for me lately? But we both feel like Ollie Gordon finishes out this B tier of starters. And then Snoog, we get to the tier that I kind of always like, because these are the guys that throughout the process likely jump. These are the guys that are committee plus right now, but two guys that you and I both love, DJ Giddens as our RB 10 and Devin Neal as our RB 11. Just put that into perspective. We're talking 11 guys that we are super excited about already. Sell me on DJ Giddens and Devin Neal.
Yeah, both of them. I'll just say player comps for both of them. DJ Giddens, I see Tony Pollard, Rashad White, like 10 times out of 10. And Devin Neal, I see Tajay Spears, James Cook. Both of them have very similar play styles, very elusive running backs, great in space, dynamic receivers, both sophomore breakouts, both 21 years old. I mean, Devin Neal and DJ Giddens both had 1,200, close to 1,300 plus yards both this season. Both had double-digit touchdowns. Their best seasons with 60-plus missed tackles forced per attempt. They're very similar. DJ Giddens was a bit better after contact with 4.14 yards after contact per attempt compared to Devin Neal's 3.73. But, I mean, both of them hit 25-plus receptions in a single season. Both of them are kind of like those 5'11", 6 foot, like 205, 210-pound guys, kind of those thinner-framed running backs that are just dynamic in space and are built and fit for today's NFL. Like they're dynamic players that you get as a 1-2 punch. You pair them up with a David Montgomery. You pair them up with one of those bigger backs at the goal line, and you just give them that receiving role, and they're going to have some type of offense. And if they become a starter, they're a top 12 finisher. It's that simple. These guys both would have been top 5 for me last year as well. I think both of these guys are better than Jonathan Brooks, straight up. Not just saying that because Jonathan Brooks flopped, but I have higher grades on both of them than I did on Jonathan Brooks. And I literally think DJ Giddens is like a better version of Brooks.
That is 11 guys with at least fringe day 2 draft capital, guys that are going to be a committee plus. The 12th guy, we move into our C tier. You could argue that he's close to that B tier. I have him in that C tier where he's a committee guy, but he's a very good committee guy, and that's Jordan James. Jordan James, 5'10", 210 pounds, 20 years old, another early declare, likely goes early day 3, someone with 1,200 plus rushing yards, a guy that had a true freshman breakout, a sophomore breakout. I think Jordan James is a nice compliment, considering we're looking at him as maybe the RB 12 in this class, is a just testament to how awesome this class is. Another testament to why we're doing 25 running back week is we're going to just keep hammering home on YouTube, on Twitter, on our Discord. That's patreon.com/smash accept. We have all of our rankings, every single position compared to 24 and 25. We have positionally ranked. We have overall ranked. We're here to absolutely help you guys smash your rookie draft in 2025. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.